Well, hey there, my friends. You know, my family and I decided with all the chaos going on out there, we were going to travel up to Mount St. Helens, otherwise known as Lewitt. There are several different native names for it, but this was one of the first pull-offs on Highway 504. And you go up north on High 5, there you go. You pull right up into the bus stop, the bus zone. You know, I wanted to get away from all the bullshit going on out there, so let's just get into it. The very first stop is this place called, I believe it was talking about a place called Silver Lake, but I don't recall if it was a Silver Lake actual viewpoint or turnoff or whatnot. But at any rate, we continued on further up the road. Now this highway, it's beautiful. Every little aspect of this highway is beautiful. Driving in a school bus makes it even better. Over here we see the Toutle River, which is covered in the mud flats which were caused by the eruption in 1980. And then we get up a little further. There's the Toutle River over there. And, you know, as life is growing back since the 1980 eruption, you can see just how pervasive life is. And, you know, the view out of my bus ain't bad either, I gotta say. When you get up to one of the second viewpoint, I believe, there's it's on the left-hand side of the road, right across the street from the viewpoint. There's this beautiful waterfall we stopped at. I'm remembering there was one called Elk Rock, and I don't remember the other name, but it was probably in the title. So this beautiful waterfall off to the side you can walk up to. And, you know, maybe I just have a thing about waterfalls, but I could sit and stare at them forever. Absolutely gorgeous. And it doesn't hurt to look at the moss, too. I love the different colors and the different varieties there are out there. You cannot escape Corona, even when it's in beer form. This was the sunset the first night. Gorgeous. This was from the first rest area. I believe it was Elk Rock rest area. And we stopped here and we decided to camp all night. Parked right here on the side. Didn't get disturbed by anybody. Well, except one person who decided to drive through the parking lot at 2 o'clock in the morning or so. And then pull up in their pickup, wail on their horn as loud as possible, and then peel out and take off. Assholes. This was the first sunset we caught before that. Wasn't too bad, but nothing compared to the first sunset. I mean, the first sunrise, sorry. We absolutely, I mean, I got up. My mind does not let me sleep through a sunrise. And this particular sunrise right here is playing at 4 times speed. It is something else. Let me just say. Rebirth. There's something awe-inspiring about just watching the sunset over the mountains. Waking up in your bus, or you might call it an RV. There was a beautiful thin layer of ice over the puddles that were in the area, right in the parking lot. And these were the clouds that came over the mountains. Now, this is a 300 millimeter telephoto lens, so it's quite zoomed in. Just to the left of this is Mount Adams, and this is like a giant cloud bank spilling in. And now that is a doorway I can love. I mean, looking out of the bus and seeing the mountains, I can't help but just marvel at that feeling of it. Now, this here is the clouds as they were moving over the mountain range just to the right of Mount St. Helens. And this is also, of course, sped up a little bit. It gives it more perspective, and I don't have to bore you with sitting here for 2 minutes. You can sit here for 30 seconds instead. But, man, when you're there in person, it's just something to behold. Now, we got back on the road the next day and headed up to this place. My wife made sure I remembered by saying it's like hammock, but it's hummock. I kept thinking, is it hummus? Is it humma? It's Hummock Trail. And we decided we were going to head up this trail. It's about a 2.5 mile loop. Right away, we passed these anthills, and there was one right by the parking lot. It was just a huge anthill. And it was funny because I was a few feet away and they kept coming to attack me. The guardians are very vigilant in the ant community. So this is the very first part of the trail. And you have a nice view of the mountain. There are many little signs along the way. The reason they call it the hummocks is because the hummocks are these little ponds. And it's a very interesting pattern. They change over the years, depending on the rain and the seasons. And there are hundreds of these little tiny ponds that have water in them. And this was a trail point about a 1/2 mile in, where you can see the mountain. And you can also go up to Johnston Ridge Observatory if you choose. It was closed from the road, but you can still hike it on the trail. But we decided to take the trail around. Came by some nice little quiet streams and springs. These are the hummocks, or these different patterns that came out of the mud flows from the 1980 eruption. And it created this amazing land that is so worth visiting that, I mean, I don't know what else to say. It's an absolutely gorgeous place. There are little streams that are constantly ever changing. And, my whole family was there with me. And it made it so much more rewarding to be hiking with somebody you love. And looking up at Mount St. Helens, I remember back to 1980. I was about 5 years old, and a little younger than him, my son. And we had ash all over the backyard. These are some more of the red ants up close. These are some holes that were made by, of course, a woodpecker of some sort, because there were little pieces all over the ground. And now what you're seeing out here is the cattails. Now the cattails apparently will erode over time and also build up soil banks. What you're looking at is over the edge there. It's actually a giant barrier of these things that blocks off the water from going down. Next year it might be completely filled. And of course another giant anthill, because this one was covered with grass and I found it to be particularly epic. And of course there was a little snowbank that I decided to walk along. There wasn't a lot of snow, and I was surprised to find this one chunk that had completely avoided, destruction. But after that, we got away from the lake and we went down to this place. This is called Clearwater Lake. It's basically across the street from the Hummock Lake Trail, and pretty much at the end of the road because they had the observatory closed. And it's very interesting. I found this sign that was covered with lichen. It just looks so cool. So I just had to share it. But the area it has some amazing trails that lead way up into the mountains. You need a backcountry permit to travel up too far, technically. But we didn't get disturbed. There were only maybe 2 or 3 other people that showed up. And, I have a certain passion for just getting out there. I used to be more like I have to be isolated, but even getting out to a place like this, This particular rock had this tree growing out of it. You can barely see it. I didn't focus very well, and it was very short, but this sunset is something else. I don't know. There's something special about going off there. Going off to a place like this where you can be by yourself while you're with your family, if that makes sense. To be able to get isolated. So we went off to Rife Lake after this, which is up north, and that comes into a different video altogether, which I'm going to upload if I ever make it. It's hard to keep up with all the different places I want to go and to be able to even go there. And here are a few of the photos that I took. So I hope you enjoy. I hope you had got some interest out of this, and appreciate your your viewership, if you will. And here's my favorite friend, the crow. I'll talk to you all later. Hopefully I can sync all this up, because I'm definitely not big on editing, but I really like to share these experiences with you all. So thanks for coming along. Thank you to my patrons, as always, and have a wonderful day. And if you ever get a chance to visit Lewitt Mountain with your kids in the snow, or your family in general, I hope you do. Take care, my friends. Bye now. Thanks for coming to Carpo's channel, yo. Yeah.